Okay, so welcome to the Historical Figures Project. This is a dataset that contains the record of every historical figure in Wikipedia that has a biography that was translated in more than 25 languages. So that's kind of, it was made by a group in MIT, and it's part of this project that called the Pantheon Project. They have a lot of cool interactive visualizations on their site, but I thought, why not we could use Flow to see a interesting way of interacting with this data. So in this data set, we have more than 10,000 people. And now with AI, Flow's AI, we can, all of them have a story to tell, you know? So I would begin with this this tab that is a scatter plot created by birthplace, and in the depth you have further back you go, further back you're gonna travel in time, right? So with this we can interact with the data, understanding the timeline, right? So we can pick different personalities along the time, and also ask anytime about one specific character that we can select. And it's gonna be creating a short description of where he's born and a little bit of his life. It's a different way of interacting with data like this, right? And plotting the data this way, it's already showing some different insights, right? So if you align with the depth, you can understand that most of the data are piled up in some continents. So we have a lot of data that comes from Europe and the North America, right? And that's kind of already shows a way to, it may reflect a little bit of historical biases already. So maybe it's shows us a little bit on how history is being told along our history, and kind of shows already a little bit of Eurocentric way of telling story about those personalities, even though it's an open source data set, so it's based on Wikipedia's, right? But it already shows a way of which stories are being chosen to being shared, right? So, and that's even a worse gap with, we're gonna see it by gender, right? So this is the same data. It's we have way less females than males, right? If you see the plot put it together, so it's only 13% of all entries there are females, and we'll see it like that. It is interesting to see how the data pops up, right? And it's, when you go to the next step, I kind of broken the how can I say the categorized columns, right? Of female and male, both in side to side along the same axis of time. So we can see that along the time that pattern repeats, right? So we can see that even in early ages, we have way more entries about different personalities. They're most basically male, right? So, but it's a way of us to show this in understand that this data gap is happening, both of where the data is collected and why, or which stories were chosen to being told by our way of writing about people, right? and also so little documentation that we have on histories about females on history, right? Even though probably a lot of stories are not being told. But anyway, the idea was to, with this final step, was to create a little laboratory to experiment a little bit with the tools that AI can give us. So in this chart, we're divided them by domains or areas of domain on which those historical figures were aligned to. And in the height axis, we have like the popularity indexes. So that's a metric that was along with the Wikipedia's pages. And the size of each dot are the amount of page views. So you can see some of those data popping up were probably more have a lot of page views, right? And the most high up, there are probably more famous people, so they have more but more popularity in a way that they're probably known, right? So if you go most at the down part of this chart, probably are more less known people, right? Also, a quick fact: if you select anyone here on this vision, you can. The highlight is showing everybody that was born in the same place, so in the same country. So in a way, you can kind of correlate some where Moses are from, and kind of seeing some interconnections. And as an AI study, I set up some set of buttons so we could interact with the data. So one of them are who. There is a pre-programmed question that it makes to interact with the AI that gives a little bit of a description where the person was born, and a little bit of his history. I set it up two more buttons as well. One is impact on society. So it kind of speculates what this person brought to the world with his life. And this other one is people that is known that okay. The question correctly is, who were the other important people you interacted with during your life? So this kind of crosses and brings a different approach to understand data. So it kind of connects different personalities that existed during our history, right? So, and also the idea to have an open mic button, so you can ask any question directly about a person that you are trying to inquire. So that's really a different way of exploring different lives. So if you go clicking around you're probably gonna know, you're gonna find out new things about those people, right? So, and yeah, I think this is it. It's really interesting to interact with different with the legends, right? So as well, you can separate by each domain and even compare. So that were the different kinds of specialities of each personality, right?
That's so cool. That's sweet. I like this idea a lot. Wow.
And also we have some this interaction actually works on the other steps as well. So maybe when you select only exploration and arts, for instance, you can go back to the gender gap and see the same.
Oh, interesting.
The same feature being applied in. And you can, in the smallest ones, you can see a really different, like inside exploration, or maybe a better one, sorry, science and technology. The gender gap, you can see it lost the, I guess it lost the filter, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, the legend isn't set to be visible on these other stacks, it looks like. But I see what you're going for. That's a really cool idea. Oh, it's really, really cool. Tell me about the curve here in the data instead of being straight lines.
Sorry, about the color?
Well, each color, each discipline has a curve, a little subtle S curve when I'm looking on it straight on. And you're using additional dimensions or something to generate that? I'm wondering what that is.
Yeah. We included a little bit of another force dimension, just to separate the data a little bit, so we could select more data points. So it's just an aesthetic. So we're not connecting to any specific data, but it's just to separate the dots a little bit.
So there's a little distribution, as I would call it, and so that distribution, are you using additional dimensions to generate that, or did you do something we did?
Yes, is that with a little bit of dispersion, right?
Yes. Nice. Yeah, it looks really cool. They look like comets trailing off. And I like that there's meaning to the depth axis being tied, and how our interests or how much content really is so recent in the big scheme of things. Really, really interesting. So,
yeah, sometimes
found anyone interesting in the data set that's someone you didn't know about before?
Yeah, I was just kind of exploring, because we had some public figures and like Lady Godiva was I've always listened in the Queen song,
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I was reading for the first time, like, she's this history, and I find it like a good example of, I think it's, let me try it again. It's fine. Sometimes if nobody's is selected, it kind of hallucinates like that. But I didn't know the whole story. It was really interesting to see. So if we press who, it tells a little bit about her, right?
Yeah.
So when you ask on impact on society, it's interesting to see how it creates actually relevant content,
Totally. For sure.
And interacted with, it's always kind of a mystery, but it's interesting in different contexts. So farther back in history, it's interesting to see how it connects things,
It's so fascinating. I always wonder if you could interact with bees to see where they are on the map. I know. It was the connection points. Who they interacted with. If we could translate those names back to data points and then draw connections, you could set up a whole nother fascinating bit of exploration around that, for sure.
Yeah, and also you can kind of see people that were living in the same in the same age, interacting. It's really different. It's a new way to learn, I guess.
Well, so here's what I think is happening, right? Mentally, is that you've taken this body of knowledge and you've given it shape in 3D space. And then you see things about the body of knowledge, about these persons, differently just because of the shapes and the way they're organized. And you get a sense of, so much power, modernity, and how that's so much more documented than the past. And like you say, the gender, whatever. So you're seeing all these interesting shapes. But it's like a scaffolding. Michael, did you use that phrase today? The scaffolding upon which these ideas can then live in your mind, instead of just having a whole list of random names. If you put a list of 10,000 names in front of me, what am I going to do with that? Just nothing.
Yeah.
It's not. There's no relationships that your brain finds interesting at all, right? So this scaffolding is a system, a context on which to hang ideas.
Yeah. It's cool. I mean, this is
Wow, he's had a lot of it.
What other steps do you have? Let's I want to see more. If there is more.
No, this is what I've worked so far. We already remembered that we have like a 2.0 version of the data set that have more entries. So it's and some different data that we don't have here. So here we just have a birth year, and in the 2.8 2.0 they have data of death as well. So maybe we can draw some lines. But it's right now this is what I have, and it was about a way to explore the AI buttons and see how it would work on an actual project,
Oh,
and it's working really great, I guess.
I really like
I think that really is great. Sorry, Michael, go ahead.
I was just saying, I'm a big fan of this visualization with the male versus female summarization, where you're seeing the three-dimensionality of like the map here, as well as time, and then also showing this aggregation layer on each axis to show on a year perspective a histogram. It's just really beautiful. Really brilliant. And I think even just during this meeting, one idea that came up that I think there's a lot of power to is combining that other legend you have on the other step with this step. So you can actually add some additional overlays. But I'm almost wondering if that actually might be something to experiment with, as well as to add a filter in on this step. So you could actually filter by those categories directly. So you could say Jeff sports on this one, and then you see it update. And that mixing of the visualizations is kind of intriguing, where they could work together. And the other one is just like very, you could basically have like the general scaffolding of category and popularity versus this one, which is like the geographic focus. So brilliant. And I love that each dot is a person, and it makes me want to bring back a picture of that in response, or something, some additional info, or just some other concept to go along with them. But already I see myself just wanting to explore, ask more questions, and just like sort of browse Wikipedia, but it's in a certain way, but looking at it with this scaffolding of whatever visualization, or look at it through the lens of time or category or some other new dimension. Really fascinating.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's amazing. That's the whole idea. And also, I was really a different process to create this. I guess with the new tools that we have right now. So we've been after Jason showed how it make some data cleanup using code interpreter, and we kind of experimented on that as well.
Oh, you did?
And yeah, it made kind of the first part of bringing data to Flow really, really easier. So for our
I've been using it a lot for all kinds of simple things too, which is really wild. It's just like convert. I had a file. So Michael, your EA flow of the CO2. So that had a state column, and all the states were 2-letter abbreviations. Well, the 2-letter abbreviations wasn't the way that the AI wanted to filter the data. So I just asked asked Code Interpreter, can you turn all of the 2-state abbreviations into their full names? And it did it in one step. It just did it. And then I saved it out, and now I had the data in the form I wanted it to.
Nice. That's great.
So sometimes it's the really simple things that, it's just like, oh, you got to go deal with all that, and then just have Code Interpreter solve this for you. Sweet.
Absolutely. The challenge then becomes knowing what you need to do or what to change. Knowing that is sort of the...
Yeah. For me to ask to filter the state of Georgia and have it not work, and then I had to look at the data, and it was looking for string equals Georgia, and knowing, I think we will have to have some sort of view of the data sets, of the columns of the data in headset, so you can glance at it and go, oh, that's the problem. Of course, in that situation, we could just give it the column names, but we'll need like a set of sample data to put in front of the user in order for them to see, oh yeah, Georgia's not going to work because it's got to be GA.
Yeah. So some general feedback, less to do with this specific flow, but more the multi-user interaction. I find I'm consistently confused on what's going on, sort of like something like new text is populating, but I don't know why, or like what was asked, or like, and so it almost feels like the AI interactions, even though it's people's HUDs, it needs to be almost like a billboard, like who's doing, or like, it almost makes me feel like the buttons in XR at least might benefit from being in the scene itself, or seeing someone, do something, so it can be a little bit more interactive. So I don't know if you guys saw it, but I find I'm a little confused of what people are doing, and that we're like overlapping as opposed to collaborating necessarily.
Well, so this is an interesting combination here, right? So you've got 4 buttons where I probably would have put 1. And so it's interesting to think about the balance there, because, you could have you could select the dot and then actually have it tell you more about that, say, tell me who interacted with this person. Right? Okay, my headset isn't happy at the moment, so.
Yeah, I personally have a little problem on speaking clearly, so AI can Flow AI can understand me. So right now it's feeling easier to write. So probably some of those interactions are buttons pre-programmed because of that. So I kind of even took it out the filter button, because it for myself was only everything that I has kind of broken the flow. But that's my personal experience, I think, as a non-native speaker.
So let me tell you something that I think the Russians have demonstrated works. So the ask is still opening your microphone, right? Just speak to it in your native language. Just ask the question in your native language. It will translate it back to English. Try it.
Me conta mais sobre você. Nah, so it's bringing in Portuguese as well.
Oh, it's responding in Portuguese as well. Oh, that's wild.
Yeah. So it's.
Did you know it would do that?
Because the last time I didn't try it. No. No, the last time I tried, it translated to English and the answer was in English as well.
That's wild. I expected it to translate it to English as well. So, but I'm thinking if you're concerned about your English accent and it recognizing you, don't be. Just speak to it in Portuguese.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Now this opened up a little bit of some possibilities as well.
Yeah. I'd be interested if it had a filter button. If you could say, filter from 2000 to 1000 AD. Actually say that in Portuguese and see if our filters would work.
Yeah. Oh no, I can edit right now. Okay. I was trying to see if we can, because I had those buttons already kind of created.
Yeah. Right.
But I will try it later and see. Right now, I feel like the filter kind of creates an actual filter, right? Along with the
yeah, the way the filtering works, it's a little bit oversimplified, because it will create a filter and it will always reuse that filter. It doesn't do any ands or ors or so, because we'll need to come up with an UI to decide, would you like me to and that to the prior filter? Do you like that to or that? Would you like me to replace it? There's a whole set of interactions that probably need to happen between the language model and yourself to understand what it means to filter to this age range or this.
Well, I was trying
and brought around that and just did a single filter.
I was thinking if I was also on another option as well, not directly connected to filters, but if we could, in a way, using voice to select things, right? So please show me or find a certain character and see if it can pinpoint or highlight that dot only, So in a way, would be interesting to see. With that, we could search this data set and kind of pop up any historical figure.
Yeah. So the way this works right now, what we built is you can say, filter to show me Scarlett Johansson, and it will make all the other dots disappear except for her. So that's not quite what you want. Instead, I have thought about using it as a highlight. It becomes a search. And there's other searches here as well. So you can actually, if you add the filter back in, you can use that instead of the legend. So you can say, show me all the public figures, and it will do that. Show me all the art, all the people in arts. And so there's what other kind of even like in this view, even though in this view you don't have any geolocation stuff, you can say, only show me people from the United States.
Yeah, it's true.
So in a way, you save yourself from having to have 6 different legends around it. But I like the idea of highlighting based on speech instead of filtering based on speech.
Yeah, this last skill, I guess. Like sometimes I feel like with filters, it's hard to go back. This undo as well. This undo button is kind of a glitch because I don't know if it's working or not, and I can.
It's in development right now, so it's it works on some things and it should be working on everything. Yeah, I think he said he was fixing it up today. So
it affects the text, but it didn't affect when we have a filter on.
Yeah, correct. But it will.
No, guys, congratulations to Flow. It's becoming a tool that is unbelievable. We just this way of interacting with charts and in data I never seen anything like it.
Thank you. This is well, I've never seen anything like what you've done here, so this is amazing. So at 5:30 at our normal evening time, I know you're signed up, and I assume that you would do this instead of that. But Hao would love to see this. Hao's going to be on that call. He would go gaga over this, and if you have time to come back and show for a minute to him, I think that would be really exciting.
Yeah, no, sure. I'll be there.
Yeah, awesome. This is, to me, this is an educational use case, right?
I think it's beyond education. I think it's just like the structure of exploratory data and what other layers of context you can add in, you know, a body of knowledge, even if it was research papers, you know, corporate learning or eminence work. And yeah, this is awesome. It's really, really interesting. I think there's a few things I want to make sure if we're gonna. So we recorded this, and I think we got some good takes. I recorded on the headset. I recorded on my phone and the computer screen here. And then Jason or Bill, did you guys record as well?
I've recorded the whole thing in headset.
In headset? In AR?
VR. Actually, not in AR, in VR.
In VR? Okay. I didn't see your avatars. I was in VR too. Did you see my avatar?
Yeah. Here, let me slide to the far side. Yeah, I see your avatar. I may not be logged in.
Okay. All good.
I can see your faces floating around, but then
the only thing I noticed was I was having a hard time on select. When you clicked it, there was no pop-up anymore. Is that because we have rollover and pop-ups?
Yeah.
In headset, I was not seeing the pop-up stick.
Maybe if you click 2 times, and to know if how does it work.
Yeah, it sticks until you do a rollover, and then it goes away. Well, we need to improve that.
Oh, just saying before this 5:30. You think that's something we could address or not?
In this case, you would want to either turn off the rollovers or turn off the select pop-up. Right, it's a system problem. We let the rollovers take over the single pop-up.